Hey guys, Joe Miles here with ASIO Gear. This is the Mission Whitetail Podcast. We're going to be doing a deep dive into what it truly takes to kill these mature bucks. We're going to step outside the box and look at the why for gear, tactics, training, and more importantly, the mindset from over 35 years of chasing these magnificent animals all over North America. Thank you for following along and welcome to Mission Whitetail.
Well, welcome everyone to the Chasing Giants podcast, episode 181 with Don Higgins and Terry Peer, and special guest. He's not a traveling salesman, folks. He's a traveling hunter. Joe Miles is on with us as promised this week. We've been looking forward to this show, Joe. Thank you so much for being on with us.
Guys, as always, it is absolutely a pleasure. I'm so happy to be back on and enjoyed talking with y'all earlier. So anytime I get a chance to hang with you boys in person or on a podcast, I thoroughly enjoy it.
You must be hard up for friends.
It's down here in South Carolina. It's tough to make them.
Yeah.
Well, I want to know how you pay this taxidermy bill there, buddy, because good grief, you're even hunting full time in the summer. You just got back from Africa. Tell us a little bit about this trip.
Man, we had a great time. I took my son over there, and he had never been before. And I worked over there for 7 years when I was younger. I did some guiding and hunting over there when I was a lot younger, and fell in love with the place. And you're right. The seasons are opposite. Their June, July is their winter, which is our summer. And obviously, and so it's a great time to be over there. You're sitting around a fire at night. One afternoon I sat on a water hole and saw 9 different species of big game animals just coming and going. Just a magical place, and it really is a bow hunter's paradise. I mean, you got different critters, impala, kudu, warthogs, just in and out, and then you get to eat a lot of the meat. So just a great trip and a wonderful experience with my son. I loved every second of it.
That sounds awesome. The memories is going to outweigh a trophy or something hanging on the wall every day of the week. I mean, that opportunity to be there with your boy. And my favorite picture that you posted that whole week was a big pile of crap that you put on the chair as cover scent. And all I could think about was, Don posted a picture of Babe today, and he's going to update us on Babe. I was just wondering if he had a big turd laying right beside him to cover up the scent so he could get video footage of him. What do you say, Don?
Well, you know what? I wasn't going to tell that part of the story. But yeah, believe it or not, I'm sitting there in the weeds and a code brown kicked in. So I had the wind. The wind was perfect, so it didn't matter. I'm telling you could go work in a hog barn all day long and go hunting in the afternoon. And if the wind's right, the wind's right. And if the wind's wrong, the wind's wrong. And I proved it last night. I proved it.
I tried to tell the tracker that I was with that this was absolutely ridiculous, and he refused it. And so he got some, it was Cape Buffalo dung, and lit it on fire. And all it did was tick off the people I flew home with because my backpack was there. And I put it up in the overhead bin where the air conditioning units are on the airplane. Everybody from rows 7 to 15 smelled like buffalo dung coming through. So that was kind of a highlight of that whole
I cannot say I've ever done that.
What about lighting it on? Did you light yours on fire there, Don?
No, I'll tell you, I've got some really good code brown stories, but I don't think I can top taking one on an airplane.
Yeah, that's the cake. I mean, at least you weren't in first class. You're back in coach with all the normal folks, so
It's something, man. The eyes that were rolling and people trying to get away from me in that backpack.
Did they actually know it was the backpack that was smelling, or?
Idea. Some of them would look like they were fighting bees trying to get the odor away from them. Oh man!
You should have done that back during COVID when everybody was wearing a mask filter over their face. They wouldn't have smelled it as bad, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. Probably felt it just the dadgum same.
Well, Don, let's talk a little bit about Babe. You saw him yesterday and got some really, really good footage. We want to tell everybody is it up on the Master Academy yet? And tell us a little bit about what you saw.
Yeah, it is up on the Master Academy. Actually, I've got a cell camera in a little wood lot, and there's a licking branch off this pin oak tree that the bucks just hit like crazy. And that's where my cell cam is. And yesterday, mid morning or so, I got a picture of a 4-year-old buck. He was on my place last year as a 3-year-old, and he put on considerable growth, got real long brow tines, and last year he had little stickers coming off the front of each brow and each brow tine, and had the same thing again, except they're a whole lot bigger this year. And I seen him, and I thought, well, I'm going to slip in there, sit on. There's actually a double crop soybean field that butts right up that little wood lot, and I thought I'm going to go, sit there. I know those bucks because there was another couple of younger bucks with him as well. I thought they'll be coming out into those soybeans in the evening. So I got there and I bumped a doe going in, but she didn't blow or nothing. She just kind of trotted off across the beans, and I got set up. And then, I wasn't there in no time, and the deer were coming out. And then the big one come out, and I was looking through some weeds, so I couldn't. I figured it was the buck I had pictures of yesterday morning, but I got my binoculars up, and I could see that it was Babe. So then I started messing with the camera and everything, but got some really good video footage of him. I bet I got at least 10 minutes of video, and then for some reason these bucks kind of spooked. There was one crazy little 1.5-year-old buck that I couldn't even see. He was out of my sight, and there's no way he could see or smell me either, unless the wind was swirling and that code brown made it over to him. But anyways, something spooked him. He went running by the big guy, and the big guy followed him, and they went around the corner, but they didn't vacate the field. They went up by a trail camera that I just hung on, I don't know, it was Saturday or Sunday. That little woodlot's a pretty good spot to catch bucks in the summer. So I went and put a second camera up there on those beans, because those beans were starting to get hit hard. I was starting to see a lot of deer on that field in the evening, and Babe just runs over there like right in front of that camera, like it was all planned. And I'm sitting on one side of the field, and there he is in front of my trail camera on the other side as I'm videoing him. So got some good trail camera pictures of him yesterday. He's he's not as big as last year. We've talked a lot about culling bucks and how I try to cull out the 8-pointers when they're 3 years old on my place. Just my experience has always been that if they're an 8-point at 3 years old, that's probably what they're going to be. Well, he kind of broke that rule, and at 4, he put on a 5x5 mainframe with 1 sticker, and then as a 5-year-old, he was a 5x5 mainframe with 4 stickers. And I thought, hey, things are going in the right direction. Let's let him go to 6. Well, guess what? This year, he's back to a 4x4, no stickers at all. Giant heavy beams and tines, but he's not going to score what he did last year. I'm going to say 180. Last year he'd have been in the mid 180s. He's going to have more mass. He's going to have more tine length, but not as many points. He's not quite as wide as he was last year either. So I don't know. That's the Babe story. I haven't decided if I'm going to shoot him or not. So
yep. That decision will take a little bit of time, but I'm curious. The footage that you got, how far away were you?
About 100 yards.
Oh, so it's pretty good footage then.
Yeah, I had my camera on a tripod, so I wasn't hand holding or anything. It's really good footage.
Did you say 180-inch 8-point, a 4x4?
Well, if you count, he's got a double G2 on one side, and then he's got 2 extra stickers on one base. If you add it all up, he'll gross 180.
As a 4x4.
Well, he's probably more like a 5x4, but
He's probably got what, 10 inches of non-typical on him. You think it's
Well,
that much?
if you
That
count that
double?
double G2 as one of those as a non-typical, he's got more than 10 inches
Yeah.
of non-typical.
So anytime you get a 4x4 over 160, it's a toad.
Yes, yeah, that's where my brain was going, right?
The professional
Well,
traveling hunter that's beside you is getting a little bit of a twitch trying
Yeah.
to.
My trigger finger itchy.
I've actually got another true 4x4. I mean, he don't have any stickers. He's clean, and I bet he's going to be 170.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Pretty easy.
That's a giant buck. He showed me a picture of that one a while back, Joe, and I was like, "Whoo, there's nothing."
He's 5 years old. He needs to go. He's got to go this year.
The trigger finger on Mission Whitetail just raised up as a volunteer, I'm sure.
Oh, y'all can't see my hand? Both up over my.
Well, to follow along on the story, I think, Don, you're planning on continuing to get footage and mulling out the situation through the summer before you decide what to do. And to follow that along, I think go over to the Whitetail Master Academy and check that out. And Joe, you're on the podcast for a couple reasons tonight. We're going to actually have you on for the listener submitted question segment. We want to talk about what's new with ASIO. But before we do that, we got good news. We just got a shipment of ASIO hats in, just like this one here. And they're going to have Real World Wildlife Products logos on the front. We'll have those on the website coming up this week. And here within a couple weeks, we'll have Chasing Giants logo. So thank you so much for allowing us to put our brands on ASIO Camo. It's so awesome that you've given us some of that freedom to represent you and all the hard work you guys have done over the last couple years.
Man, I appreciate it. No, it's an absolute pleasure to get the hats to you guys and use them how you want, and hopefully the guys that get them will like them. I think they turned out great. I got to speak when they came into the warehouse, and man, they look good. So I'm sure the guys are going to love them.
Yep. So we got a bunch of Real World Wildlife Product logo ones that'll be on the Real World site, and then we'll have them up here shortly on the Chasing Giants website. So make sure you check those out and support Joe Miles and ASIO Gear a little bit. It's dude, the support that you've given us, not only for the podcast but also Lester's Feet, it really does mean a lot to have you in our corner as much as you are.
Well, it's so mutual, guys. You know, it always has been since absolutely day one. When you find good people in the industry, you got to lock your talons in and keep growing and doing things together. And so I just appreciate, having had the opportunity to meet y'all and work with y'all and grow. It's just been a blessing on my end for sure.
And the real thank you, I guess, really should go out to all the listeners who have gone out, and everywhere we go, they're wearing ASIO Camo. I think it's the most popular camo out there right now. No matter where we go, people got ASIO on it. So I guess the big thank you needs to go to all those people listening to the podcast that's gone out and bought it.
It really does. I appreciate it. It's to say humbling, that's the wrong word, but to go from an idea of walking in the woods and figuring out what we wanted to do with that ambush predator camo, and then seeing people that I've never met, not friends and family, but people I've never met wearing it. I mean, it's a wow factor. It's humbling. It's a blessing beyond anything that I could ever have imagined. And it's been a lot of hard work, and it's you guys have certainly helped a tremendous amount spread the word, and I just am so appreciative for our customers. And we work hard to do everything that they need and build stuff that's going to help them. So that's kind of our mission.
And I think the other thing that, Don and I are very blessed, and Don can speak to it if he wants, but Don and I are very blessed to have such a great following inside of the Amish and Mennonite communities. And one thing that you did different that no one else did in this industry when it comes to garments is you actually prepared a pathway for our Amish and Mennonite folks to be able to order it, whether it's putting order forms in the Busy Beaver magazine or being able to call in. You know, that was another level of service that you had to put a little bit extra work, time, manpower in, but really connected to some of those followers that have been just so good to Don and I over the years, right, Don?
That's absolutely right. I, the people that we attract with this podcast, this is not going to come as any surprise after last week's political rant, are the salt of the earth people. Terry and I have already run off all the knotheads. Everybody that's left is great, and our sponsors are the same way. And I think most of our listeners are like me in that they want to support good companies, that are run by quality people with integrity, honesty, high character people. And ASIO fits that bill. And, one thing that I can share with you, Joe, is if you look at the pictures that we take at my whitetail master class, every year we go out on the property tour, and we stop in front of the smoky blind and we take a photo. If you compare the photos from the classes this past spring to this previous spring, the previous spring, I don't know if there hardly anybody in ASIO. This year, I'm telling you, it's ASIO everywhere. And, those are the good people that don't get mad at my political rants and run off and cry. So,
those are the people we want wearing it for absolutely.
Yep.
Well, Joe, I've seen a couple social media posts this week about ASIO 2.0. And why don't we just instead of doing an ASIO commercial segment this week, why don't we just dive in a little bit to explain to the listeners, whether they've seen this marketing campaign or not, what does ASIO 2.0 mean, and what do you got cooking for guys getting ready to get suited up for fall of 2023?
Absolutely. So 2.0, we try to follow the textile technology as close as we can, just like, you guys do with the seeds and, the NutriCrave corn, and the way you guys just stay on top of or feel the pulse of technology. And that's what we try to do with the textiles, and textiles are improving every single year. And so we've got a blend now of a grid fleece outer fabric and a higher pile fleece. And what we did, and not to get super technical here, but when you have a real high pile fleece, and what I mean by that is like that Berber fleece, that really thick fleece that catches all the burrs and all that stuff and irritates guys, but it's really quiet. What happens with that is you have to wet print it. And when you wet print that fleece, it makes the definition of the camouflage deteriorate. It soaks into those fibers, and you don't have the vibrant camouflage. So what we did is on the 2.0, the face of the garment, everything that's going to be facing the deer, we took the pile as far as we could take it and heat transfer printed it where it would still take the high definition of the camo. And then on your moving parts, like under your armpits and on your back that might be brushing up against trees, or when you're drawing your bow, we used a higher pile Serpa that is wet printed. So we call it our panel system, where everything that's going to be facing the animal that needs to have the really good camo, we kept that with high definition camo. Stuff that's not really going to be seen as much and could cause noise, that's where we put in the quietest fabric we could develop. So that's kind of the face fabric that's going to be on the bibs, the jackets, the vest, and the face fabric and the back fabric. And then also we've got a patent pending new collar design that's going to be on all of our jackets and all of our vests. And I don't know about you guys, but over the years with just about every brand out there, I would take the vest collar, when it was kind of unzipped, or the jacket collar, and I'd fold it in, into my neck, because when I drew my bow, my anchor point would be weird, or I'd get string interference. And I just got tired of that. And I said, you know what, we're going to scallop this collar down. We're going to keep it really high in the back to keep the wind off and keep you warm. But when it comes around to the front, we scalloped it down, below your Adam's apple, basically. So it's completely out of the way. You can get a repeatable anchor point and you have no string interference. And, all these are small things that we're talking about, really minute, but man, they can make a difference. I'm sure there's some of your listeners, and I bet we get comments on this podcast that have hit their vest or hit their jacket collar, and it's caused the arrow to fly off weird and hit the deer bad or miss the deer. So we have completely alleviated that. So that's kind of the technology that's gone into the 2.0. And then we've got some new products. Terry and Don, if y'all want me to, I can kind of dive into what's going to be new.
Yeah, we want you to definitely do that, but I got just a couple questions about this panel system. So, one of the great things about fleece is, like you said, how quiet it is. But the burrs on the bottom half of your legs just drive you nuts, and the harder the soft shell is, the louder it is. The idea of somebody putting the soft stuff on the back where your back is rubbing against the tree or the tree stand seat is genius, and I don't know why anybody's done that yet. You told me about these small changes and improvements at ATA this year, and you said don't talk about it to anybody because somebody's going to steal it. It'll be on every other camo pattern within the next year. They'll go and release it next year, and you wanted to keep it a little bit close to the vest, so you had more time to get your product line out, and they couldn't copy it as quick. But man, I'm telling you, for the last 6 months after you told me that, I'm like, that's a testament to everything about your camo, where the pockets are, how the cuffs are, the lengths of the sleeves, every single, the little covers over the bibs buckles so they don't make any noise. That's just another testament to the attention to detail that you as a tree stand deer hunter are putting into these garments versus people crawling around the prairies of Colorado, and there's nothing wrong with those camos. They're just they're built for that, or to use in Africa. And yours is the only one that, from the very basic design principles, are to set in a tree stand. And that's what's so special about it.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we've worked hard at it, and like y'all, I spend a lot of tree stand hours sitting there mulling over fixing all the world's problems. And the last few years, I've really focused on hey, how can we make this better? How can we make it quieter? How can we make you stay in the stand longer and be more lethal? And that that's what we think about basically all day.
Well, when you hunt 26 states, you spend a little bit more time in the tree than Don and I.
I see a real correlation here with how ASIO operates and how Real World operates, because what other camo company has a hunter as serious as Joe as the founder president? I mean, this guy's using this stuff. The reason that he wants it, the reason he finds these little changes to make is because he's in the tree all the time.
To give him an improvement of a garment of something that's not there.
Yeah, it's the same way with us and our seeds and nutrition products. We're using them. I mean, we're using them ourselves. We want the best. And it's the same way with ASIO. You're using that. You're wearing that your own camo to the woods. You know the problems. You want to correct them because you want the best chance of success.
Yeah, and I think
without a doubt. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we both also have some core values that are the same, and we're not going to buy celebrities to just say that they use it because of using it. We want to get it in the hands of people and have them look at it, have them feel it. The grassroots marketing of both of our companies is so parallel. It's a wonder that we're really strangers up until a couple years ago. There's so many parallels. It's really neat.
It is, absolutely.
Well, Joe, let's talk about new products for this year, 2023. We got hunting season in South Carolina in mid-August coming up, September 2nd, 3rd, something like that in Kentucky, and most of the Midwest is going to open up here in less than 60 days. So as guys are gearing up, what do we got cooking new from ASIO?
Yep. So this year I'll start, kind of the next to skin. We've got two sets of base layers coming. We've got a thin pair that's 150 grams per square meter is GSM is what they call it. And then we've got a heavy pair that's 290. So most of the heavy stuff you see out there is like 270, 280. We went a little bit heavier. And we also went with a combination. I tested these things for 3 years, and there's been a big merino kick, and merino is a great fabric for warmth. The issue with merino is it takes a long time for it to dry. So we actually did a blend. We've got the best of both worlds. We did a synthetic and a merino blend that we tested over and over again. So you get the warmth and the scent properties of merino wool, but then you get the drying capability of the synthetic. So really excited about these base layers that are coming.
Does the Long Johns have a flap in the butt for a code brown?
They will for all of the Chasing Giants listeners. We're going to custom make.
Can we put our logo on the flap?
Yeah. Oh, the quick detach. That's what
Little House on the Prairie button-up flappers on the back with a Chasing Giants logo back here.
I love it. That's perfect.
We need some wipes that are in ASIO camo. That's what we need.
There you go.
Biodegradable. That's right. They'll look
Yep.
compartment. That's actually a really good little compartment on the base layers. That's great.
Yeah.
I'm making notes here, boys.
Well, when all the other companies steal the idea, I want royalties.
There you go. All right. So what else you got besides the base layers?
Yep. So we got our 2.0 bibs. It's the same exact bib design, just with that new fabric that we discussed. Another product that I am absolutely jacked up about is our late season vest, and we'll have to get you boys a couple of those. It's got 180 grams of Primaloft, and it's just like our core warmth vest, except it's got the new collar design, the new fabric, and it's got 180 grams. So you can take our Sherpa jacket, which I know a bunch of your listeners already have, the Sherpa jacket, and put that late season vest over the top of it, and you will easily be able to wear that thing down into the teens, and you're going to have no bulk whatsoever on your arms. So
Joe, talk a little bit about, a friend of mine got me into vests several years ago, and I never really was a vest guy until I realized how warm it kept me, but how much mobility it let me have, in a tree stand, drawing a bow back, not having that extra layer in your armpits and down your sleeves. Talk a little bit about that, because I know you've tested all different shapes and sizes.
Yeah, it's super important. So what people don't realize is their hands and feet, when they get cold, most of, not all the time, but most of the time, the reason that is because their core got cold, and the blood sucks in from your extremities to your core to keep your core warm, because that's your body's natural instinct, is to keep your core as warm as humanly possible. That's where all your organs are. And so the blood starts to leave your fingers and toes, and those are the first things to get cold. If you keep your core super warm, then your hands and feet are going to stay warmer. And so that's why having a good base layer, having a vest on, a core warmth vest to keep that core warm, is so important when it gets cold. And then absolutely, you can put on a great big heavy Michelin Man jacket and go out and shoot your bow, and then you can put on some sleek sleeves and a thick vest and see the difference. I mean, it's night and day. And again, that's what we're trying to do. And we'll probably eventually come out with something that's got some super tapered sleeves. But as technology increases, as long as it's got the windproof barrier and insulation properties, we can do that. So right now, that late season vest and the Sherpa jacket is going to be an awesome combination for when it's cold.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. What else?
Yep, we've got let's see, we got the base layers. We've got a non-metallic belt. It's actually something I learned from some of my SEAL team buddies. It's a belt that comes around and doesn't have a buckle. It's got Velcro on the front, and don't let the Velcro scare you away, because once you lock it down, it's not moving. So in the mornings when you put your belt on, it's not going anywhere. And once again, it's a small thing, but if you got binoculars hanging down there or a grunt call and it hits that metal buckle, or you got your pack wrapped around your waist and that pack buckle is hitting that metal buckle, you don't have any interference with that whatsoever. So once again, it's just a little small improvement that could help you. So it's a pretty neat belt that we've got coming. We've also got the compact new backpack. Unfortunately, again, and this is a terrible problem to have, but I got a feeling before the season starts, we're going to be sold out of those dadgum things.
You better put one aside for me.
Yeah, I've got a back, but
we've been talking about this for a while.
Yeah,
I'm super stoked about this.
Yep. So we those will be in should be the middle to end of August, and we've got them on pre-order now, and they are flying off the pre-order quote unquote shelves. So we've got that coming. We've got a hand muff that's got the 180 grams of Primaloft, and it's windproof, and we've got the same fabric designs on the front and back, and then we've got our silent sleeve over that buckle as well.
Well, what else you got, Joe? Is that about it?
Yep, that's what we've got coming. So we've got the base layers, the 2.0 on the jackets and vests, 2.0 on the bibs. We've got the backpack. We've got the belt. I'm trying to think if I'm leaving anything out. I think that's it, boys. I think that's everything.
All right, Joe. Well, if people want to get a hold of you, obviously the best place we need to go is to the ASIO webpage, and I'm sharing that on my screen right now. And I love the look of the new website. Very simple, but awesome, awesome design, very eye appealing. But if people don't have access to the internet and they're listening online, why don't you read off the phone number of where they can go to give a call into the office to do business with you?
Yep, they can. It's a toll-free number, and it's 1-888-544-7150. Again, 888-544-7150, and it really will be me, Cole, or Lucas answering the phone. So we're right there basically every day, unless we're in the tree.
Well, that's every day for you.
Well, yeah, but I that's why Cole and Lucas are there, so we're good to go.
All right. Well, do you mind sticking around and answering some questions from our listeners with us?
No, absolutely. Thank you very much.
All right, Don and Joe, I'm going to share my screen, and Don can read the first question, and you guys can take it away the rest of the way.
All right. The first one comes from Tyler Gehrig from Danville, Kansas. He says, "Hey, fellas, first off, I appreciate the nonsense and faith-based aspect of the podcast. In my part of Kansas, the last 10 years, the out-of-state hunters have blown up. My question is, would you change your goals on size of bucks that you pass and let grow if this was an issue for you? I can't compete with the giant bait piles they hunt over on the properties surrounding me. Most of the big bucks have decreased in size from 170 to 180 inch deer down to 150 to 160 inch deer. I love hunting big deer, and this is frustrating. Your opinions are highly respected. Thanks, Tyler." You want to take that one, Joe? You first, or you want me to go first?
I'm fine. I absolutely, because I got some interesting news today. I don't know if you guys saw this, but it's going in front of the Kansas, I guess, DNR. They're talking about potentially pulling all bait from the state of Kansas. I don't know if you guys saw that. So I would be excited, very excited about that. If
Kentucky's not far behind them, I'm afraid.
I got no problem with that. I mean, I think Missouri, and maybe I have this wrong, and I know there's some CWD areas, but I think the supplemental feeding after the season, to help them late winter and getting some mineral to them is very good. But the baiting, man, if we could do away with that, I think it would improve a lot of deer herds.
Don, you talked about this last week when he says he's got 170 to 180 going to 150 to 160. Do you think that that's what you were talking about, is just age structures going away?
That's probably exactly what it is. Ironically, just today I went out and I checked 7 trail cameras, some of those for the first time since I put them out there at the 1st of July. And I had roughly 20,000 pictures on those 7 cameras. And there was not a decent buck on any of the 20,000 pictures. The quality of the Illinois deer herd is going down the toilet. I know why the last straw, the straw that broke the camel's back, was when they legalized crossbows for the entire archery season. Our archery season now, you got trucks every evening parked all over the place, where, and gun season is almost dead today. And that was not the case 20 years ago. 20 years ago, opening day of gun season, trucks everywhere. And those guys have given up gun hunting for 3.5 months of crossbow hunting. And the the buck population just can't take it. Now back to Tyler's question though, he wants to know what I would do in that situation. Well, I like hunting big bucks as much as you do, Tyler, but you just got to do whatever it takes to find those bucks. If the property you're on it has went down, the toilet, so to speak, you need to go elsewhere. And I hear it all the time from guys. They'll say, "Oh, the properties I have access to, blah blah blah." Well, who limits you to your access there? It's you. It's your decisions, your choices, your whatever, your work ethic, or the effort you're going to put forth is limiting you to the properties you have today. If that passion for chasing big deer is strong enough, then do whatever it takes. And one saying I've got is, you've got a choice. You can make excuses or you can find solutions. And there's big deer out there. And, I was just complaining about the state of Illinois. Well, I've got a plan on what I'm going to do about it. I'm not going to share it here for the whole public, especially my neighbors to know, or local hunters. But I'm going to switch gears and I'm going to start doing some things different, to combat what's happened. And make excuses or find solutions. Nobody is tying you to that property that you're talking about that's been surrounded by non-resident hunters. You're not tied there. Nobody's forcing you to hunt there only. Go wherever you need to chase the caliber of bucks that you desire.
Anything else, Joe?
No, I just I could not agree. I mean, that was exactly what I would say. I mean, I live in South Carolina. And that
This is your life, right?
Yeah, that's my life. And if I just stayed pigeonholed and kept blinders on and hunted right here in South Carolina, I'd have a whole bunch of 115-inch, South Carolina swamp bucks, and they are fun to hunt, but I would have no 170s, 180s hanging on the wall. I get in the truck and do crazy stuff. I'll drive, 8 hours to cut on one trail camera on one 10-acre property, when it's time, and turn around and drive right home. So it is the work ethic, and that is absolutely across the board what separates the guys that really get it done over and over, regardless of who they are, where they live. The guys that kill them every year are the guys that work the hardest.
No doubt about it.
Amen, brother. Amen.
Yep.
All right, Don, how about the second one?
The next one comes from Jeff Sparks from Macomb, Illinois. He says, "Don and Terry, thanks for a great podcast and more importantly, the kingdom work you are doing. In the last podcast, you mentioned having Joe Miles on this week and questions for him. My question relates to the moon. My understanding is Joe was at one time an owner of the Moon Guide, but is no longer involved with it. How does Joe hunt the red moon? It seems like Joe has a hunting trip every week, and only a small percentage of those hunting trips could be related to the red moon. So how does Joe use the red moon in the real world?" Well, Jeff, Joe's right here, so I'm going to let you ask the man himself.
That's a really good question, and he makes a very good point. So to start with, yes, history of the Moon Guide. I'll be brief here. Jeff Murray created that thing. He did a bunch of studies on moon, and the thing about the Moon Guide that's a little bit different than a lot of the lunar calendars out there is it is totally fixated on the position of the moon, not the phase. So it looks at the overhead moon and the underfoot moon, which is the moon that is directly overhead and directly underfoot at certain times during the day. And the premise is when that moon is directly overhead or directly underfoot during prime moving hours, it has a tendency to get deer up and moving. So Jeff Murray did all this studies put together the moon guide, and unfortunately, he got a very rare blood cancer, I believe it was, and he passed away. And his wife took over, and slowly over time, the moon guide started to kind of go away. And Adam Hayes, a good buddy of mine, I know you guys know Adam. He came to me and said, "Hey man, there's an opportunity to buy the moon guide." And I had used the moon guide some, before. This was something that I used, and it was a tool that I had that I paid attention to. And when the opportunity came, I decided, yeah, that would be a good investment. I bought it, and I never will forget the first year I had it. We weren't going to do anything with it. We were just going to shelf it, start the next year. And I had like 40 people call me. They found my number by calling Cabela's because it was sold in Cabela's. And then it was the Cabela's directed them to Jeff Murray's widow, and then she gave them my phone number. And so I said, you know what, we've got to print, 1,600 of these things. We printed them. We sold them all. They're the little dial, the data wheel dials. And that's how it resurrected. We really built it up for 3 years. And then I actually ended up selling. Adam and I partnered on it, and I sold my half of it to Adam, and now he runs it completely himself. So the moon guide is all Adam's now. As far as myself and how I hunt, look guys, if the weather's right, I'm hunting. The only time you're going to catch me sleeping in or not hunting during deer season is when the wife is super angry, and she happens to be really cool and really laid back. So that doesn't happen a whole lot. And I've been doing this nonsense since we started dating when we were 18. So she's very accustomed to my craziness. So I'm going to be hunting when the weather's terrible. And what I mean by that is hot. When it's really hot, I might take a day or two off or come home and reset the batteries. So I'm going to be hunting. But I do look at the moon guide. I do like to know when those red moon days are, when that overhead moon, underfoot moon is, because that might be a day, especially in that pre-rut, that I might bounce into one of my better spots. Weather trumps pressure trumps everything. Then in my mind, pressure trumps everything, then weather, and then the moon can have an impact in my anecdotal experience over the years. And that really has to align where you have low pressure, great weather, and then you get an overhead moon in the afternoon in late October. That I've killed some big deer on those days.
So talking about the pressure, what specifically are you looking for with that barometric pressure, Joe?
Well, I was talking about your favorite saying, human intrusion.
Pressure. Oh, human hunting pressure.
Human hunting pressure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Everything. If you've got a property that's getting blown up, it doesn't matter if you have a great moon. It doesn't matter if you have great weather. You're out of the game. So I would say that trumps everything, followed by weather. Cold, barometric pressure, wind, all of that, and then the moon. That would be kind of how I look at it.
I would agree with that 100%.
All right. Well, I think this next question comes from somebody that's just down the road from me in Owenton, Kentucky. So,
yeah, Tom from Owenton, Kentucky says, Don and Terry, I was curious what your opinions are on deer cooperatives working closely with neighbors. I'm torn between reaching out to my neighbors to try to elevate the class of bucks everyone is shooting, i.e. trigger finger management, or going with the lone wolf approach. I'm in the hill country of Owen County, Kentucky, and worry that if the neighbors realize I'm working to produce mature whitetails, that I will have increased pressure on my borders. Maybe I'm better off having them tag out on the first yearling or 2.5-year-old, be out of the woods before a big boy shows himself. Thank you all for sharing your knowledge. Well, Tom, I think a cooperative can be a great thing as long as everybody in the cooperative actually follows the rules. And from what I've seen and I've never been a part of a cooperative, but I've got a lot of consulting clients that are supposedly working with the neighbors, and then I get the text, I passed this buck 2 weeks ago, and guess what, my neighbor who agreed to let that buck walk ends up shooting him. I hear them stories every single season. And you're right on the money. A lot of times, all you're doing is letting those bucks go to your neighbors. Now, with that said, you get into some areas like, in southern Iowa, where everybody is really serious and everybody is on the same page. Well, it can work fantastic. But I think even in those situations, there's a couple of things that you're dealing with. First of all, in a situation like where I'm at, where there's hunting pressure around, but it's not right on my border, I know when my 3-year-olds leave, if somebody gets a chance, they're probably going to get shot. But I'm isolated enough that I can protect those bucks to some degree. There's going to be a certain percentage of them that are going to survive and going to move on to older age classes. And that's the type of situation, where being the lone wolf, as you call it, actually works out. When you get into an area where every farm is trying to grow giants, it becomes a whole lot harder for you to set your property apart from your neighbors, because to one degree or another, your neighbors are all doing the same thing you are. They're all putting out big food plots. They're having a sanctuary on their property. They're all watching the wind when they hunt. So along comes a giant, and the odds of that giant being on your property versus your neighbors is a whole lot less than in my neighborhood, because in my neighborhood, I'm the only guy with big food plots. I'm the only guy with a true sanctuary with zero human intrusion. So you just got to look at your situation. I prefer the lone wolf approach most of the time, because I want to use my neighbors to push those bucks to me and set my property apart from them. But I'll be the first to tell you that I'm pretty extreme in the caliber of bucks that I'm looking for. There's not very many places where your neighbors are going to let 170-inch bucks walk. No matter, even in southern Iowa, 170-inch bucks are going to get shot pretty regular. So I've taken things to the extreme. That doesn't make me better than anybody else. It's just where I'm at. I've shot enough bucks. If I never shoot another one, I've shot more than my fair share. But Joe, I bet you can shed some light on all your travels. You've hunted every type of situation there is. You could probably shed some light on this topic as well.
Man, and it'll be quick and simple. Remain silent. And I tell you, I've lost properties. I've been rooted out. I've had guys come in and come in right behind me or before I get there. I mean, it just, the quieter you can be and beat to your own drum. I mean, if you are one of the rarities and you have really good neighbors that are going to do exactly what you're going to do, then good for you. But man, oh man, that's got to be hard to find. So I guess my opinion or advice, if you will, would be remain silent, go the lone wolf route, and keep everything to yourself.
Should we design an ASIO one-man wolf pack shirt?
We absolutely.
The one-man wolf pack once hunting season.
Yeah.
What's the old saying that a buddy of mine said? I'll post pictures of it when he's in the bed of my truck or something like that. Until then, I'm not posting pictures of anything.
Without a doubt, man. These guys that post all their velvet pictures and trail camera pictures of the deer they're after and everything, it blows my mind. Blows my mind.
Well, I do it some, and it actually works to my benefit, because I know that the more pressure I create around my property on surrounding properties, that it's going to help my place, because I know enough to stay out
But
of my place.
You have a bigger buffer than most people do.
That's absolutely right. Yep.
Most people don't have that buffer. You're talking about a 2-mile, 3-mile buffer in most of the directions. We got people sitting on the fence post.
You're exactly right. That isolation of a hunting property is so huge, and I did not realize it when I started, but it just fell into my lap, and it's the only reason I've been able to do what I've done is because of that buffer that surrounds my place.
All right. Good question.
The next one comes from Justin from Wild Rose, Wisconsin. Says, thank you, Don and Terry, for sticking to your Christian values in today's world. Can you both please go over guesstimating a buck's age without having previous history with them? I know it is very difficult to do so. I haven't had cameras out for several years and would like to break into the 4.5-year-old bucks and up. I have cameras out now to start to gather history from here on out. Thank you and God bless. Well, Justin, the reason that I picked your question is that this time of the year, my phone absolutely goes berserk with text messages of guys sending me pictures saying,
How old is
how
he?
old is this buck?
How old is he?
And, the most difficult to tell a buck's age is during the summer. In the summertime, they've all got thin necks and you can tell the really old bucks from the really young ones. It's that middle age, from say a really good 3-year-old versus a 4 or 5-year-old. That can be very difficult. In the fall is when you're going to have a whole lot easier time because those mature bucks, they're just going to fill out. Their necks are going to fill out, and they're just going to look like a totally different animal. And a good example, and I know this isn't in the fall, but the video footage that I just shared on the Whitetail Master Academy of Babe, he had a 1.5-year-old buck there messing around with him in the beans, and literally it looks like Babe would easily score or weigh more than twice what that yearling buck weighs. And that's not an exaggeration at all. And those guys that have seen the video know exactly what I'm talking about. Body size is an indicator. A buck just doesn't get to 250 pounds as a 2-year-old. So
Eating little Debbie's.
Well,
Hey,
I don't
it
know if
took a
there's
long time for me to get this chubby. It wasn't overnight.
if you guys want to try to age Terry, you go right ahead. I don't know, Joe. You've seen as many wild bucks as I have, and you've seen them over a whole lot more geography than I have. So maybe you can shed some light on this.
Don, I think you can tell the yearlings, the 2-year-olds, but I think when they get 3 and up, I've heard you say this before, and it's 100% true. It's like people. You get a big fit superstar that's maybe only, in deer's age, a 4-year-old, and then you can get one that'll, is short-legged and, not as thick, and he might be a 6.5-year-old. So unless you have, in my opinion, unless you have, a lot of history with the deer, when they get past 3, it's so hard. Is he a 4.5? Is he a 5.5? Is he a 6.5? What I look at there is two things. Is he mature? Is he not mature? And for a guy that's not doing the upper tier management, man, if you like the deer and you think he's mature and you're after a mature deer, man, have at it, right? I mean, I can't tell you the number of pictures I get from guys in South Carolina that send me deer and say, hey, do you think this one's old enough to shoot? And I'm like, well, how many 120s have you shot? None.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are you doing? Our rifle season comes in August 15th, goes to January 1st, and you can shoot 5 bucks. These guys are bow hunting, sending me pictures of mature 120-inch bucks and going, do you think he's old enough? I don't want to go on a rant here, but man, if that, your priorities, what are your goals? What are your priorities? And if that deer fits them, who cares what anybody thinks or says? If you're happy with that deer, man, that's what it's all about.
Let the air out of it.
Absolutely right.
So,
Joe,
Joe,
we've all three been around. We've all three been around long enough to see this change in the deer hunting community where it's about age, not score. We've all heard that. It's all about the age. Well, that's a bunch of garbage because I'm telling you, if a hunter's sitting in a tree and he's got a 2-year-old out there that scores 130 and he's got a 6-year-old that scores 120, guess which one he's shooting? He's shooting the young buck every time.
Every time.
That garbage about the age. And so now we've got all these deer hunters that are so worried about the age of their buck. And Joe's advice is spot on. If he makes you happy, you shoot him. Don't worry about when his birthday is. Who cares?
Yeah, that's right.
So, Joe, what about repositioning your trail cameras to get a little bit different angle where you can actually measure the distance between the butthole and the bottom of the scrotum? And the longer that distance gets, the older the buck is.
Well, I hear Wise's coming out with an app in their AI. You'll be able to do that. They're going to put a drone in, and it's going to go right up to the butt, and it's going to have a calibration machine, and then it'll fly back and send you that data, and then it'll tell you whether it's old enough to shoot or not.
Yeah. If it's tucked into deer's socks, you know it's a real old one.
Yes, ancient. Shoot without question.
All right.
We just had that one, Terry.
It should be loading now.
Okay. Next one comes from Garrett Stoops from Ashland, Ohio. It says, "Hi, Don and Terry. First, I'd like to thank you for everything you guys do for the hunting community and the great content you put out. I haven't missed a podcast on Monday mornings for 2 years, and I joined the Master Academy as soon as it came out. I have a couple of questions. Don, on last week's podcast, you mentioned you could make Ohio the best state in the country if you were able to make a few changes. With that said, could you stop talking about Ohio? Just kidding. Would you ever consider leaving Illinois for the right farm and trying to make Ohio that best state, meaning becoming a politician? Or better yet, I think the campaign would be Trump Higgins 2024, and you could change a lot of things around the country. Well, Garrett, I'd love to be king for just a week because I would change the world, believe me. Question number 2. You've said in the past you should be able to get all the bucks on your property on one camera. Is that based off an inside corner camera placement, a rope scrape, or a mineral site? Could you explain this trail camera location? I'm probably not the only one not getting all the bucks on camera, or even more than just a few. I don't even think I get them all with multiple cameras. Thanks again for all you guys do. Good luck chasing Babe this fall." Well, Garrett, your first part about me selling out in Illinois and moving to Ohio, I'll tell you what, if you get the Ohio DNR to hire me as their deer manager, and I have the power to make any change I want to the Ohio regulations, I will seriously consider moving to Ohio. That's what it would take. I'm not
He
moving there
didn't
the way
say
it
sell
is.
his farm. He said
Yeah,
move.
I'm not going to sell my Illinois farm. There's no way I'm selling my Illinois farm.
There
So
would
the
be
other
no
question,
reason to move, though. Because out of state guys,
well,
unless that was in your rules that you were gonna change.
well, I wouldn't care what state it was. If I could be in charge of any state in the Midwest, in 5 years, that state would be number one. But anyway, that's never going to happen. So let's move on to the second question, about getting all the bucks on one property on one trail camera. And this is a perfect example. And this is the whole reason I picked this question. I'm still learning as much as anybody. My goal every year is to be a better deer hunter at the end of the season than I was at the beginning, so that the next year I'm starting out better than I started out last year. And I continue to learn some things. And just this past winter, I had a situation on my farm that I would never have believed possible. And my son-in-law and a friend of his were hunting here, trying to shoot some cull bucks late in the season. And they'd come in, and a lot of times I was gone consulting, but I'd talk to him on the phone or whatever every evening. And my son-in-law was describing this buck they'd seen a couple of times to me. And I know my bucks on this place. I mean, they start describing, I know exactly what they're talking about. They was describing this one buck, and he was a mature buck. And I couldn't figure out what in the world buck they're talking about. It's like, you guys got to take my video camera along and video this buck, because you're seeing him, and I don't even know what you're talking about. And sure enough, very next afternoon, they take my video camera. They filmed this buck that I did not have a single picture of. and I had several trail cameras on my property. And last spring, when I pulled my trail cameras, I don't know how long the buck was there, but I never got a single picture of that buck the entire time he was here. And if it wouldn't have been for my son-in-law taking my video camera, I would have never believed there was a buck here that I didn't have a picture of. So I think at one time I did say that on my property, I could probably get every buck's picture with one camera. That doesn't mean any property you can go with one camera and get every buck's picture. And there's just certain terrain features where all the deer are going to funnel through. They just pretty much have to. And if you've got one of those terrain features on your property, then you're going to get about every deer's picture that lives there. It's not 100%. Like a lot of things with deer hunting, and especially when it comes to mature bucks, there are tendencies, but there are no absolutes. Just about the time you think you got it figured out and you think you've got something figured out that happens all the time, along comes a buck like I just described from last winter, and he shows you don't even know what you're talking about. So the big lesson here is that I don't think I'm a know-it-all. I'm still learning like everybody else. I've got a lot of more experience than probably the average deer hunter, but I'm still putting the pieces of this puzzle together, and I don't think any of us are ever going to figure it out. I think when it really comes down to it, you could take the most knowledgeable whitetail person on the planet, no matter who you think it is, somebody like Dr. Strickland, maybe, and whoever you think is the smartest whitetail mind on the planet, that guy does not know as much as a 1.5-year-old whitetail buck. And then you consider how much more a mature buck is different than a yearling. We will never figure these critters out 100%. But that's kind of why I wanted to pick that question, was to let you know I'm still learning just as much as everybody else.
Joe?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There are no absolutes in whitetail hunting, in my experience, and I think it depends, also on the size of the property. If you've got a giant property with tons and tons of cover, like the place I have access to here in South Carolina, my buddy owns a big farm here, and he lets me just kind of have free range and hunt the whole thing. And it's all river swamp. It's a few small patches of food plot, and then it's all cut over and just big hardwood river swamp. And so there's not those terrain features. There's not those big funnels. I would be hard pressed to get a third of the bucks on one trail camera, because they are really spread out. But then, like on the 29-acre tract I had in Illinois, I had one trail camera on that entire property, and there was a fence crossing that they had to come through. So, that small little property is set up where I only had to run one trail camera, and I got every single buck that would come in and out of that property. So, yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the size of the property, how it lays out, and yeah, that would be my 2 cents on that question.
Well, I think we spend so much time worrying about the layout, and I'm guilty of this too. But we spend so much time worrying about the layout of our food plots and our bedding, creating that perfect stand site. And Wes Delk said it the best. You create trail camera spots just like you do stand locations. And there's things that you can do to manipulate the habitat or terrain or features or trees or fence crossings, gates, miscanthus plantings, to build trail camera spots to where you can get the inventory you're looking for while you're minimizing intrusion. And I've seen this on Wes's plans that he sent to people, is he spends as much time, building trail camera locations while everybody else is spending all their time about their stand site. And I think it's a really valid point that if we put as much time into our trail camera location versus our stand locations, we could have a better spot. And we talked about this with the price of batteries this year. When you can minimize the number of cameras you have out there, you're going to save a lot of money, but you're going to put much less intrusion on your property.
Yeah, I see a lot of trail cameras on my consulting visits where guys hang them. And, sometimes scratch my head. And this is not with every client, but I've seen situations where it's a wonder that people ever get a picture of a mature buck the way these cameras are put out. And I tell my approach that I've started telling my clients is, when you put your trail camera out, you need to think of it as not you're trying to get a buck's picture, but that you've got a trespasser. Your neighbor is trespassing. You're trying to get a picture of a human, and you don't want that guy that you're trying to get his picture to ever see your camera. Because if he does, he's going to steal it. And that's the way you need to approach as you're trying to get these bucks pictures. You want to keep them bucks from seeing that camera. And I'll go right back again to the video I got last night. When I was filming Babe, and that group of bucks spooked, and they ran across the field, and they ran in front of my trail camera. I showed some pictures on the video that I posted on the Whitetail Master Academy today of those pictures that were taken last night as I was sitting across the field watching them being taken. And he comes up there, and that trail camera has only been there since this past weekend. And he's coming across that bean field, and he is a good 20, 30 yards from that camera, and he locks in on it. He sees it on the tree, and then he walks right at it. And you watch him, a series of pictures. That buck comes right at that camera. And I watched it from the distance. I watched it happen. And when he seen that camera, he was done in the beans. He went back into the timber and probably stayed there till dark.
Mel did the same thing. When you put that camera over that scrape.
Yep. I don't think guys realize that now there's some mature bucks. It goes right back to what Joe was saying. There's no absolutes. There's some bucks, they'll walk by the same trail camera stuck on a stake in a wide open food plot day after day after day, and sit there and, chew clover hanging out their mouth as they're looking in the camera. And then there's other bucks, you get them one time at a location, and you're done. You're never getting them at that location again. I've seen more than one buck that I would get his picture here, one time, done. Then maybe I get it over here, one time, done.
The king buck would never let that happen, Don. He's only letting you get one picture, and then he's out. Well, Joe, we thank you for being on the show today. We're really excited about all the new products coming out. I want to hear a quick update before we sign off about Mission Whitetail, what you got planned for it, and how people can reach out and listen to that, because that's been a pretty good outlet for you.
It is. I appreciate that, and we are going to have the dial-in service for our Amish guys. It should be going out in the Busy Beaver with the phone number of what that is. I don't think Lauren and Kelly have gotten it exactly dialed in yet, but they are working on that. So guys, we'll be able to call in and listen to the podcast. And we're doing it every other week, and have really enjoyed it. Just to back up for just 1 second, I would like to say something about the Whitetail Master Academy. Just real quick, and you can call it a shameless plug or whatever, but I've been hunting since I was 5 years old, and it's one of the best tools. I go to it often. So guys, if you're out there and you want something that's unique and different, man, check out that Whitetail Master Academy, because just the property layouts, Don, that you go into, man, people would pay a fortune to. I told you this, kind of off air, that you're not charging enough for the Whitetail Master Academy. Those property layouts, what I do is I look at them, and then I make mental notes and go, okay, this is what I would do. This is what I do. This is what I would do. And then I hit play and I go, I was wrong here. I was wrong here. And I was there. So, just the education from that alone. So I know I went off script for Mission Whitetail, but just wanted to say that it's been so helpful for me. And I think guys that want to be successful and that are successful, they kind of check their egos, and they want to be, get as much knowledge from other guys, and guys that do it maybe a different way, or live in a different area, and are constantly trying to gain more knowledge and more pearls of wisdom. And man, there are a bunch of pearls in that Whitetail Master Academy. So I just wanted to get that out there.
I was sitting
Thanks,
with
Joe.
Austin Razor in the airport down in Destin Sunday. We were flying home from offshore fishing last week, and we were in a conversation. I said, Austin, I think there's two kinds of people in this world. There's the kind of person that listens and asks questions and is always trying to learn when there's a conversation going on. Even though they're participating in the conversation, they're listening, they're asking questions, and they're observing. The other type of people in this world are the ones that won't stop talking just to legitimize themselves and validate themselves so that other people think that they're of a higher value. And when we go to the approach that everything we do, we're setting back saying, well, what can I learn from this situation? Or how can I understand how someone else's position is, or what they're going through, or what their goals, objectives are? We learn so much more and absorb so much, and that conversation becomes a lot more valuable. And it's just like what you said, you got to check the ego a little bit.
Yeah, without a doubt, man. I mean, that's it. We don't know it all. You hit on that earlier. A year and a half old buck knows more than we do, and man, there's guys that have seen stuff that we've never seen. And if you can get one little nugget, you might end up in that position, and that's going to come to the forefront of your mind. So Whitetail Master Academy is a great place and super inexpensive for the value that you're provided. Absolutely, without a doubt.
All right. Well, we look
Thank
forward
you.
for more episodes of Mission Whitetail. Go check out the Whitetail Master Academy. But thanks for being on the show, boss. We really appreciate any time we get to spend with you. It's always a blast.
Thank you, guys. Y'all have a great evening, and won't be long till we'll be sitting in the tree. I can't wait.
Thanks for your time this evening, Joe.
Yeah, thank y'all. Appreciate it.
All right. God bless everybody. Have a great week.